of furious driving. Now, it's not often that we'll see a concept car leap from the imagination of a car designer into the real world, but every so often that does happen, and here it did, because this is a Mk1 Audi TT, and not just any Mk1 Audi TT. This is the best of the bunch. This is the 225 Quattro manual. But before we get too far into this video, don't forget, if you like reviews of interesting, unusual, different modern and retro cars, then please do hit like and subscribe and check out the back catalogue of many goes for a drives. And also, if you'd like to know what day of the week it is, then check out the furiousdriving.co.uk shop, where calendars for 2025 are currently available. And if you're watching this in subsequent years, then I imagine those years will also be available as well. The link still stands. Anyway, on with the story of this car, the Audi TT. And this car has just arrived at Stone Cold Classics, where it's being prepped for sale as we speak. Check out their website in the link below. And thanks, Wayne, and thanks to them for the loan of the car for this review. So the story of the TT begins way back in 1994, that's 31 years ago, as literally a concept car, a radical idea. Mark Licht, the head of Audi design, describes the concept as inspired by the Bauhaus, which, if you're into art and design, is quite a significant thing. It was the new, clean design of the 1920s, which led in many ways into Art Deco. It's also heavily inspired by the 1930s Auto Union racers, which were epic things in their own right. And you can really see that in the clean lines, the simple geometric curves, and that big front end, where it just looks so much like one of the old Auto Unions. The exterior design was done by J. Mays and Freeman Thomas, and it was shown to the world in 1995 at the Frankfurt Auto Show, where it made, well, let's be honest, a bit of a stir. People loved it. There was nothing like it in the Audi lineup at the time. And this was very clever penmanship, because underneath this car is basically a Golf. I'm sure you know this already. It is the Golf platform. It is the VW Group Type A platform. If you want to be really specific, it's the PQ34. It's got independent suspension all-round McPherson struts, but this also underpinned the Audi A3 and the Skoda Octavia. This is predating the MQ range of platforms. So this means it's the same platform and the same mechanical underpinnings as some fairly ordinary, everyday cooking hatches. But what they did with those ingredients was really add a touch of spice and make it something a lot special. And over the next 3 years, they refined it and refined it, and so it went into production with an interesting arrangement. Sorry, it's 2.5 degrees and the car keeps beeping to let me know. With an interesting production arrangement. The engines were built in Hungary, and one of the biggest engine plants in Europe, while the bodies were built and painted in Ingolstadt in Germany, when they were shipped over to Hungary, where the entire car was assembled over there. This was true for both Mk1 and 2 TTs. At launch, there were 2 engine choices, which are both basically the same 1.8 litre 4-cylinder 20-valve engine, but in different states of tune. There was the cooking 180, which is 180 horsepower, obviously available as front-wheel drive with Quattro as an option, and the 6-speed manual as standard. Or there was this one, which was the halo of the launch, the 225, the same 1.8 20-valve, but remapped to 225 horsepower, and that's thanks to a bigger turbo, different inlet manifolds, twin exhausts, and obviously a different wrap. That came with the Haldex 4-wheel drive system as standard, so all of these are Quattros, and you get the choice of the Tiptronic, which is not that exciting, or this, the amazing 6-speed manual, which really is quite exciting. It's a lovely, snicky gear change that lets you just chink through the gears. And really enjoy what the car can do. Ha! New road layout ahead. Joke's on you, I have no idea where it went before. Ha ha ha! Yeah, that's probably not the best solution. But a little while later, of course, the halo model of all turned up when you got the VR6 3.2 250 horsepower V6, which is kind of the one everyone wants, but in reality, it's a little bit heavy, a little bit thirsty. And the 225 is the faster revving, lighter motor, which, yeah, that's kind of the one to have, really. This is the absolute Goldilocks of the car range. Now, the handling and driving characteristics are quite interesting because by modern standards, this is actually a fairly soft car to drive, but by 1990 standards, it was pretty hard sprung. And typically of an Audi, it's not as loaded with feel as perhaps some of its rivals. Like if you were to get into a Porsche Boxster of the same year, that would be communicating so much, you would have information overload of what the wheels were doing underneath the car. Whereas this, was basically a nice Golf. There is enough information for 90% of the time, but you also get this lovely soft ride, which is cosseting and smooth. So this is quite a bad road, but I'm not being jittered and bounced around at all. I can feel there's enough tautness in the suspension that if I were to hit a corner quite hard, I'm not going to because it is quite cold and potentially icy, it would not lean too much and it would grip and go. And the fact it's got the all-wheel drive Quattro system in here really does help with that. Wow, actual icy slush. That's the ideal time to be driving a coupe. And the interior, as well as the outside being really very interesting and exciting to look at, the interior is also a fascinating place to be. Typical Audi characteristic of the 1990s and early noughties was how well screwed together the cabins were. They were some of the best out there. Although it's all VW Group switchgear and stuff, these are the same indicator stalks you'll find in any number of Skodas and Polos and all sorts of other things. It's got a unique touch and everything is just really well hammered together and really interestingly designed. The cabin design, which gets all the wants these days and really will put a premium on your car if you have one, is the baseball mitt finish one, which was a beautiful brown antique leather finish with big baseball mitt stitching on it. And I remember seeing those when they were new and thinking, I want that. I really want that. And this looks good, but the baseball mitt, my God, that is incredible. This car though is quite exciting with a blue interior. We've got the metallic blue on the outside, which looks great, I've got to say. But this blue leather interior, this is something else. But it wasn't all honey and roses, because that lovely, sleek, slippery design with its 0.35 drag coefficient did mean that there was an element of instability at high speed, particularly over 110 miles an hour, where notably on the Autobahn, people were finding it was lifting at the rear end and causing quite nasty crashes. And also, in some kind of sharp cornering manoeuvres and things, they were struggling as well. And so around 1999-2000, they had to do a recall on these things and do two things. First of all, they had to update the electronics, so the stability control, anti-slip computer programs were significantly revised, and physically, they were given a rear boot spoiler. And of course, all newly built cars after that point got those same revisions and the boot spoiler. But because the boot spoiler wasn't a legal requirement, it was just a recommended upgrade, not everyone took the boot spoiler option because it does spoil the clean lines and the original intention of the concept car. So occasionally you'll find one that doesn't have the boot spoiler. Audi's Heritage Collection car, for example, has the clean boot. And those cars, like with the baseball mitt interior, are actually worth a little bit more because they've got the original design. I mean, theoretically you could just pop the boot spoiler off, have it filled and painted, but you know, having an original spoilerless boot is quite exciting. But that was quite a significant theme because stability in a sports car is fairly fundamental. And these are not exactly slow cars. With this 225 engine, we've got 221 horsepower, so we're just slightly off the 225 claim, and 280 Newton meters of torque, which is I think 207 foot-pounds in the old money. 0 to 60 is 6.4 seconds, and it's got a top speed of 151. And the trade-off for all of that performance is an MPG of 30, so you're not even paying much of a price. It's even got a practical boot. Let's pull over and give you a proper walk around all of this stuff. So let's take a look around the interior of the car, and the first thing to notice is how low these windows are. They are little slots in the side of the car, like on a hot rod or indeed a racing car from the 1930s, and it's this lovely continuous teardrop curve that goes into the back. I believe it's a new laser seam welding process they use to create this for the seamless design on the outside of the car. But anyway, you pull the door handle and check the door. Glass drops, allowing you access, like on a Mini Cooper, because this is a frameless door design. This particular car has this fantastic blue leather interior, and so you see we've got the same blue here in the doorway, and it's quite an angular square cutaway into here, and quite curious little combination of design. So we've got the standard fit Volkswagen parts bin mirror switch just here, and then we see the start of this Audi TT motif, the circle with the little indented dimples all around the edge. You'll see this all around the interior of the car. It's the first time we see it on this drum section of the door handle. However, hidden inside the drum section are our window switches, concealed behind here. So if you're uninitiated, it might take you a moment to figure out where they've been tucked away, but they're out of sight, so they don't ruin the line of the car. Then above that, we've got a door handle, which again is a circle with the indent motif on quite a small little cast metal thing. Beneath that, we do have a very, very small door pocket, which is basically a net with no space behind it, so quite curious. A tiny speaker in the front of that, and then we're inside the car. The seats themselves, very, very comfortable, very supportive, very square and very hard leather, which is kind of typical of Audi back then, and I think to a certain extent today as well, really. So climbing aboard over the TT doorstep, which I think looks like it actually lights up. We are inside the car, and you'll find we have that little indented motif literally everywhere. So we'll start up at the top on our capacious tea shelf, which even comes with a toast rack. How convenient and thoughtful. They knew we were going to make an afternoon tea and need somewhere to put our buttered toast, ready to have our jam and our sardines. Very, very pleasant indeed. What a nice thought. I imagine this is probably intended as an air ventilation system, but you know, far more useful for racking your toast. It's a vast tea shelf, lots of room for tea, coffee, any other refreshments you plan to be imbibing on your journey. Quite handy because I can't find any other cup holders in the car, so best leave it up there. Coming down, we've got 4 of these lovely circular indented rings around our air vents, and they actually rotate to open and close the air vent. So that's actually kind of nice. They're mostly innies, but there's one outie which tells you what position it's in. And underneath that, we've got a bank of 5 controls which have all got the same design, the same circle with a little indent motif. Our heated seats, ESP control off and on, hazard lights, rear screen heater, heated seats for the driver. But this is quite curious on the heated seats. You push it to turn it on and then rotate it to set your temperature range. So multi-stage, that's quite cool really, isn't it? Moving down from that, we've got the radio, which is visible right now with its Audi concert CD player, looking very, very serious and Germanic, but that is underneath the cover. A satin chrome TT cover, no less. And the name of the car is another historical thing. It's not just the Bauhaus and the auto unions that are referenced in this car. This goes back to the Isle of Man TT, which NSU had a model called the NSU TT, which is actually rather successful, and they kind of referenced back into that with the name of the car and this lovely, oh, that's real metal, it feels lovely, logo just here. Underneath that, I'm going to pop this on so you can see the heating and ventilation coming on just here. Oh yeah, you can see the lights on my heated seat just there. You can see I'm on half power. We have got temperature on the left and fan on the right, but these are not fully rotating knobs. This is really interesting. They are click left, click right, click right. For fan, it's almost like a sequential shifter for your heating and ventilation, so that's quite interesting. I didn't realise they used that, because it looks like it's going to go all the way around, but it doesn't. Beneath that, this is quite a prime area of interest in the TT, because you've got these amazing grab handles. These handles are quite handy if you're driving a bit exuberantly and you and the passenger want to hang on when you're upside down. That is what you cling onto. It's got a nice leather padding, which, as I say, looked amazing when it was clad in the baseball leather. Ahead of that, normally concealed as part of this open tunnel area and looking very cool indeed. It's just a black plastic curve, but you can move that forward and that's where you find a cubby hole, just about big enough for not quite big enough for a phone, I don't think. And then your little buttons for boring stuff like opening the boot and the petrol cap. There's also an ashtray / litter bin inside there. Moving back from there, we've got this magnificent 6-speed manual gearbox, which is rather lovely. And again, we've got that circle with the indent motif on it. And that gearbox is just so lovely. Behind that, of course, we have got proper handbrake, which is nice. Pen holder, like on a Mondeo. And our central locking button, which does hint that it's only going to open the passenger door and nothing else. But I suspect it does everything. Now moving back in front of the driver, we've got quite a nice little instrument binnacle. It's not behind a single panel of plastic or glass. It has 4 individual dials in this domed area just here. We've got our rev counter redlining at 6,500 RPM. We've got our speedometer going up to 160, and we've got our temperature and our fuel. And all of them have got a tiny version of the circle with the indent motif, which looks like a 1930s racing car feature or a filler cap from a 30s racing car. Moving back from that, we've got our lovely sports steering wheel. It's kind of a hard leather, nicely sculpted, again with the Auto Union rings. Sorry, the Audi rings, what am I talking about? And that same little circle. And down underfoot, we've got these lovely metal pedals with little rubber indents for grip. Looks and feels fabulous. And although the window line is very low indeed, it doesn't feel at all claustrophobic. I've got a lot of space above my head. I'm sitting very low indeed in this car, and although it's not as tall as a VW Beetle, which is also built on the same platform, it doesn't feel significantly small. When it is smaller than the Beetle is behind us. Let me show you the back seats. Little catch down here, and it's not exactly generous with the legroom. Whereas with the Beetle we had a little while ago, my son, who is a teenager, could actually sit in the back in sort of relative comfort with both headroom and legroom. There's none of that here. This is very much paying lip service to the idea of a seat. We do have a couple of little lockers left and right. On the passenger side one, which I can't get to, I'm guessing it's just a locker. On this one, we have got, well, indication. Oh, there is a seat, first aid kit right down the bottom. God, that is deep. That goes a really long way down. So yeah, that is the rear area, which is not its most capacious thing. Moving back into here, did I push the button? I did. So there, here we have a spoiler that was added in 2000, which does spoil the line a tiny bit, then hence the name of spoiler. And this is kind of where that motif comes from. This is the sports racing filler cap, which has got actual Allen head bolts all the way around it, looking fantastic. Right into the boot. And that is a really, really usable space. 305 litres, big and open. It's not that tall down here, but with the seats down, because I do flip forward, you can fit a lot of stuff. Not quite a wardrobe, maybe only a small fridge, but you can certainly get a lot of luggage in the back of this thing. So this is kind of the perfect coupe in a way. So it's fast, it's comfortable, got loads of toys on the interior, and I'm really good for 1998. This is quite a late one. They went on until 2006. This is a 2004 car, so there's been a few updates and changes along the way. So it's, yeah, as I say, fast, practical, comfortable, and fun. This is really everything you want, and there are some absolute bargains out there. You can find them in the classifieds for £1,000, 1,500 quid. Good ones like this with, I think, 45,000 miles on it and a good service history and in immaculate condition obviously go for a fair bit more, because people want these things. People will change an older one for a lower mileage one after they've had their fun with a previous car. But this is an absolutely wonderful thing to drive. The gearbox is light and snicky, the pedals are light underfoot, the steering is perfectly weighted. As I say, if you were comparing it against, say, a Porsche Boxster, that would be an unfair comparison because that is an ultimate driving machine. If you're comparing it against, say, a comparable BMW Z3 of the same era, this is certainly on par, if not better. Definitely better than a Golf. Oh, this gearbox is lovely. So thank you for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this ride out in this absolutely immaculate, minty, lovely, I'm really enjoying this car a lot, Audi TT. It's a car I've often given a little bit of a thought to and thought maybe I should get one. Now I know I probably should. unfortunately this one's probably going to be a bit expensive. Let me know what you think of this car. If you've enjoyed this, please hit like and subscribe, and join us again next time driving something completely different.